This podcast is part of the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network, the network for first responders and those who support them.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Hero Academy podcast. I created this podcast for you if you are a first responder, police officer, fireman, nurse, military personnel. This podcast is for you. Let's get your stories out. They need to be heard by everyone, especially the good ones. Let's share those stories and create some positivity out there in the world. Enjoy this episode. Welcome. In this episode, I have Detective Sergeant Tulio Serrata, my friend, my brother that I've known for over 25 years. His story from going from New York City EMS to the police department. He's been all over, homicide. I'll let him tell the story. All right, let's get to it. All right, so for those in the audience that don't know my brother, my friend, Tulio Serrata, can you please just give a short version of your life?
All right, a short version is hello everyone. It's nice to be here with my brother Dave. We go way back. As far as myself,
over 25 years.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's before I had gray hair. As far as myself, I am of Dominican descent. My parents immigrated to the United States in the when they were in their mid-20s. I was born in New York City, and I was raised in Brooklyn. I was raised in Brooklyn in a time where Brooklyn was not the nicest place to be at. And then from there, I wound up coming out to Long Island, where I spent a majority of my, half of my adult life out here. In that transcourse, I've worked for New York City EMS. I did about 8 years there, then transferred over to Suffolk County Police Department, where I'm currently employed as a detective sergeant. And hopefully, just in a few more years, I'll be able to retire and sail off into the sunset.
So I know that you've told me a lot of good stories from the New York City EMS. Any particular stories stick out in your head? Like what's the craziest thing that you can remember ever happening in the city?
Every day was something crazy. You got to remember, back when I worked EMS, it was the early 90s. Crack was at its highest peak. There was a lot of violence, a lot of crime.
What borough?
I worked in Brooklyn until I was moved to a tactical unit. While I was in a tactical unit, I was responsible to go to areas that were depleted of resources, mass casualty incidents. For example, the 93 World Trade Center explosion. I was one of the first units to arrive at the sub-level explosions at the World Trade Center.
I didn't know that.
I responded. Yes, I was able to extricate and assist the firefighter who fell down a couple of sub-levels, and we were able to get him out of that location. But every day was something different. I was one of the youngest ones to ever be employed by New York City EMS. I was in the academy at the age of 19, and wow. I was working Bed-Stuyvesant. Like I said, there was a high violence, high crime rate, a little bit of everything. But one of the craziest stories that stand out to me was I had what is called an individual who wheeled himself in front of a train in an attempt to commit suicide. So he wheeled himself right onto the tracks just prior to the train pulling into the station. He did not die. What he wound up doing was he wound up bilaterally amputating both of his legs from the knee down. But he didn't have any pain because he was paralyzed from the waist down. So by the time we were able to extricate him out with the use of ES and the airbags, one leg was 15 feet away, another leg was like maybe 30 feet away. So by the time we stabilized him and recovered his amputated legs and put them in ice and transported him to the hospital from Brooklyn, we wound up transporting him to Bellevue Hospital. He wasn't the nicest individual, let's say. And it turns out that we later learned that the reason he is paralyzed, he was paralyzed, was because he had attempted suicide once before by throwing himself in front of a train a year or two earlier. And he didn't die from that either. He just wound up becoming paralyzed. So this is his second attempt at committing suicide
Oh my
by throwing
God.
himself on the tracks. And he wasn't very successful at this point either. And like I said, we had a long commute from Brooklyn to Bellevue Hospital, and he wasn't the nicest individual, to say the least.
What made you want to become a cop?
Well,
Like you didn't get enough action from the EMS.
No, because you see, what happened was with EMS, I was recovering the aftermath. So I was recovering the gunshot victims. I was recovering the stabbing victims. I was recovering, I was always picking up the aftermath. And I was like, what if I become a police officer and I can actually prevent some of these acts of violence by being a police officer instead of having to pick up and seeing the anguish, seeing the pain, seeing the misery that followed. So I said, all right, how about I just jump forward and try to prevent some of that stuff? And then that's when I decided to I was on about 8 different civil service exams. I got called by all of them. And then I got accepted to the Suffolk County Police Cadet Program that you were part of. And, hey, Suffolk County swore us in, and that was it. That was
the rest is history.
Yes, sure.
The rest is history. Yeah. I took like 4 or 5 tests. I was in the city for 5 months. I got, sworn in by the city. I took the park ranger, and I also took Port Authority, but I didn't score high enough on that. Yeah. And I also took Nassau County PD as well, but they ended up throwing that test out because it was cheating.
Yeah. There always seems to be some kind of issues with these open competitive exams, especially
there was a lot of scandals going on.
Yeah,
there was a lot of scandals going on back in was it late 90s, I guess?
Yeah, mid to late 90s.
Mid to late 90s. Yep, mid. Yeah. So so now you're a boss. How long you been a boss? Sergeant, detective sergeant?
Yeah, I've been a sergeant now for 4 years. The first 2 years, obviously, I was a patrol sergeant, and the last 2 years, just this month, I had my anniversary of becoming a detective sergeant for 2 years. I'm pretty proud of that. As you know,
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. The detective sergeant is probably one of the most difficult positions to obtain. It's not just an exam. You have to go in front of the panel and get crossed by superior officers that give you different kinds of let's say scenarios, question you about legal stuff, search and seizure. So it's a pretty challenging interview, and I'm pretty proud. I'm the first Dominican detective sergeant in the history of Suffolk County. I'm pretty proud of that, and hey, just moving along.
You're also the president of the Hispanic Society. How'd that happen?
Well, when we first came on, the Hispanic Society was a big catalyst in developing the cadet program with the Department of Justice. And I've always been very grateful to the Hispanic Society.
Me too. Me too.
And in the past, I've always been a member. I wasn't able, due to the time constraints, to participate, be an active member, but I was a member. And then now that things have calmed down and I'm situated, and I decided that I wanted to give back a little bit and try to bring the Hispanic Society what I believe that it should be. And so, I ran for president. I was lucky enough to be voted president, and I had a lot of big plans. Unfortunately, this pandemic kind of shut me down. But
I wanted to ask you, pre-COVID, you guys were doing a lot of charities. What was one of the charities that that really stands out to you that you remember?
I mean, even through the pandemic, we still have been, obviously with precautionary measures and CDC guidelines, we still been able to do certain things here and there, but we've been very, very restricted. One of the most gratifying benevolent acts that we did was when we partnered up with Cops of Kids, and we delivered toys to underprivileged kids in the neighborhood of Wyandanch. And I tell you, it was an unbelievable event. It was totally gratifying. During that day, just like 2 or 3 days prior to that, I had a real bad episode of Bell's palsy. Okay. So my face was not not looking all that good because I was paralyzed from one side. I couldn't blink, and I had a
Oh
difficult
my
time.
God.
But my wife's like, "You got to stay home. You got to stay home. You're not well." And I was like, "There's absolutely no way I'm missing this." And I decided to go ahead, and we had several members participate in this event. And anyone who was there will tell you that it was one of the most unbelievable things that we did, to see these kids light up to receive gifts. And it didn't have to be expensive gifts. It could have been a basketball, it could have been a little ball, it could have been a little Barbie doll. But just the fact that, we were bringing these gifts when they weren't not expecting it. And, it was funny because we would pull up with lights and sirens and police cars and making all this noise. And, there was a confusion on the block. They thought we were possibly executing a search warrant. Some people might have been running, thinking that we were executing a search warrant, but the kids were a little confused. But when they saw that we were handing out gifts, it was the smiles on their faces. It's something that you'll never forget.
So you've had quite the career. Like it inspires me. You went from EMS to PO to the gang unit to getting promoted to detective.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
being part of the hostage negotiation team.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I was part of the hostage negotiation team when I was the detective in the 3rd precinct. It was quite interesting. It's very, very good.
Yeah, you've been very blessed to move around and see a lot of different areas of the department.
Yes.
How long did you do in homicide? Homicide detective?
Yeah, I went to homicide. I did 5 years in homicide. This is where when you get 5 years, the office gives you a gift for completing 5 years. So you get an engraved watch with your name and your shield number. And, a watch like this, you see the option is a watch or a ring. And anyone who you see with this, that they put their time in.
That's pretty awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So then from homicide, you got promoted to sergeant?
Yes, I requested to go to the 1st precinct where I never worked before, but I was always interested in working in the 1st precinct because I know how busy it is. So, a lot of people thought I was crazy. When I walked in to take the sergeant's exam, people looked at me and they thought I was crazy. They were like, you're working in homicide. Why would you even consider becoming a sergeant? I would die to go to homicide. And I was like, because my goal was to be a detective sergeant. So, I always looked at it as if I can make sergeant from a specialized command, hopefully with all that experience, it'll benefit me in moving to detective sergeant. And fortunately it has,
So for any young people out there that are thinking about becoming an officer, you have any advice for them?
Well, we're living in difficult times. So kudos to those individuals who in today's day and age are still interested in doing law enforcement. I thank them.
It is a tough time right now.
It's very difficult. But you know what? There's still plenty of good police officers, and what we see publicized in the media is not nearly the truth as far as the corruption and the mistreatment and it's not nearly what it is. You have so many good police officers and so many good people doing the good things. Aside
Hey,
from
you're preaching to the choir to me.
Yeah.
I consider police, EMS, fire, rescue, nurses. I consider them all heroes in society right now. How do you feel when you get that label? Like, how does that label make you feel?
You know what? It doesn't really bother me because I know who I am. I know how I treat people. I know what I've done. So, there are times where you might have conversation with people who are not law enforcement, who might have a negative attitude towards police officers. You try to educate them on situations that they might not be fully educated on. But, you can do what you can do. You can try to tell them what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear. And they're going to make the decisions regardless, whether it's based on factual evidence or not.
Yep.
So you're not going to be able to control someone's perception. You can try to educate them on the situation, but they're going to believe what they're going to believe regardless. So I'm not going to exert energy on someone who's just not being open-minded to the realities of the fact.
Who's your top 5 heroes? All time greatest of all time. It could be athletes. It could be anything.
It's hard for me to say that because there are people that I see that do such good things that aren't necessarily famous, aren't necessarily wealthy, aren't necessarily in the public eye. So, to me, a hero to me, or an individual, can be a
Well,
person that's doing things undercover, not
well,
necessarily for the recognition.
well, those are some of the people that I want to talk to, the people that aren't necessarily getting the recognition, that are
Yeah,
doing some, big things. Because I think the more that you let other people know, like, I don't believe that good deeds should be done in silence. I think that good deeds kind of catch on and catch, it inspires people and it catches on like fire sometimes,
yeah. I mean, you can go every day. You any given point, you can go on YouTube and see a video of a good deed that's done, and you're like, wow, look how awesome that is, And just watching the videos, you feel your heart. You almost get a tear in your eye because it was such a generous and benevolent act that was committed by someone you don't even freaking know, and no one would ever know. But you know, I guess those are the people. You see there are people that will run into a burning building and take out a grandfather and then walk away. You'll never get that identification. You
And
never know what
you'll never know that they did that.
you never know. And gone. And you'll see the media attention, and they're trying to find this individual, and they'll never come forward. To me, that's a hero. To me,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
someone. But you know,
What three pieces of advice would you give yourself at 18 if you could talk to your 18-year-old self right now?
uh, max out my deferred comp.
No matter what, right?
max, max out my deferred comp for the rest of my career. No, honestly, just be ambitious.
That's not a bad piece of advice, man. Everybody
Yeah,
says it, but it's
yeah.
hard. It's hard when you're in your 20s and you're trying to buy a house for the first time,
I
and
think the biggest.
you're
I'm
not at
sorry.
top pay. It's
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. I think you know what the biggest piece of advice that I would give myself at 18 is to really listen, comprehend, and pay close attention to the advice that some people give you. Because when you're young, you are under the impression that you know it all, or that you've seen it, been there, done that. But sometimes you get advice from people that you really don't pay that close attention to. So I think, if I was to give myself advice now, I would say pay closer attention to some of the advice that you receive from individuals who've been there, done that, and experienced it.
That's good advice. If you had Jeff Bezos money, $100 billion, and your family was taken care of, what would you do?
Well,
Are there any kind of like world projects that like you had in mind? Like,
well, you know what? Something that just recently, I just recently experienced something, and we have people who are unfortunate and maybe don't have the same financial resources that you and I may have, or that anybody else may have. And it's funny because, like, you got to put things into perspective, because you can look at your lifestyle today and be like, oh man, I wish I had more money. Or, oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. Yet there's someone who wished that they had what you have.
no, I know I'm very comfortable.
Right. So
I'm very
so
comfortable.
so there are people that wish that they can live the lifestyle that we live, and for one reason or another they can't. But like a perfect incident, and this is, I'm going to give you a personal incident regarding my nephew. My nephew likes basketball. He recently started to find the affinity of playing football, so he started to play football. So I asked him, I was like, "Hey, do you have a football?" And he said no, and I was it. I was bewildered. He lives in the inner city. They have nowhere to play football. There's no space for them. And I'm like, I just can't imagine that a kid can't play like an average kid here out in the suburbs, in the city. They don't have the opportunities to play organized leagues and organized sports. They
Yeah.
can't. I remember when I grew up in the city, there were no basketball teams. There were no organized football. We didn't have a PAL in the city. We did have a little bit of a baseball league, but it's not the way it is here out in the suburbs. So I would definitely like to, if I had that kind of money, is establish a free organization where kids are able to play any sport that they want and not have to worry about the resources to purchase equipment. To whether they want to play hockey, they have to buy hockey equipment, where it will be totally free, equipment included, so that they can decide and choose and experience and play whatever they want to play with without any issues. You know,
I like it. If you had your own Netflix special, what would that be?
Oh man. You know what? I
you probably film yourself. You probably film yourself setting up some kind of sports league like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people will be interested, but yeah, you know, just to bring the notoriety to an issue that maybe a lot of people aren't aware
of. Okay, all right. What's the deer story? I was told that I had to ask you about that.
All right, so I know exactly who gave you this information. Sergeant Biter, who used to be Sergeant Biter was my supervisor when I was in the gang unit.
And, yeah, he told me I had to ask you about the deer story.
All right, so remember, you're talking about an inner city kid that comes out to the suburbs, and you know, something from as simple as the darkness at night here in the suburbs as compared to nighttime in the city. In the city, it's really not dark because there's always some kind of ambient light or anything like that. And as far as the city wildlife, aside from a stray dog and a couple of rats and pigeons, you don't see any wildlife in the city. So I'm very young on the job, brand new on the job, and I'm on patrol, and I get a call of a deer that was struck by a vehicle. I never even seen a deer in my life, you know, except for Bambi. So I respond to this scene, and I see a deer, and it's a big deer. It has antlers. It's a big deer. And both of its front legs are destroyed, and it's crossing. Instead of to the park, it's going to the residential area. I don't know what to do with this deer. I have no idea. And so I try to grab the deer by the antler and turn it around. And this deer starts going crazy, almost kicks me in the head. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So every time I kind of like try to redirect the deer to go back into the woods instead of crossing the street it keeps turning around. And it's a hot day. I remember it was really hot. I was sweating. I didn't know what to do. So I'm dealing with this deer. All of a sudden, one of the residents comes up to me. She has a knife in her sleeve. She pulls out this huge knife and she says, "You're going to have to euthanize this deer. Just cut his throat because it's suffering so bad." And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to slash this live animal's throat. Anyway, time goes on. I don't know what to do with this deer. I call for a supervisor. Supervisor's taking a lot of time to arrive at the scene. I'm struggling back and forth. I'm actually fighting with this deer back and forth. It gets to the point that I'm fatigued. I don't know what to do. I grab the deer and I drag it down behind the car, right? This is not protocol by any means, but I was confused. I didn't know what to do. So I grabbed the deer and I kind of put it by the tailpipe to see if I could euthanize it. And I grab a blanket and I make like a canopy over the deer and the tailpipe, and I'm holding it down, and it's kicking, it's going crazy. My supervisor shows up. He's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I was like, I didn't know what to do. I had no direction. I've never dealt with this before. So he's like, "No, we're gonna shoot it. Don't worry, just drag it into the woods. You got to shoot it." I was like, "Well, I wasn't gonna discharge my arm without, clearance." Again, being a rookie, I don't know what to do. I need direction. So he has me drag this deer. Now this deer is kicking. It's kicking as I'm dragging it. How I didn't get kicked in the head beyond me. So I drag it into the woods, and I kind of like put it down. And I was like, "All right, Bambi, turn around. This won't hurt a bit." So at point blank range, I shoot it in the head. This deer jumps up and starts screaming with a bullet hole in his head.
Oh my God.
I jump back. I get scared. I kick it, right? And I fall back. My sergeant falls back. And this deer is screaming. I mean, I didn't know deer scream like this. And he's like, "Ah!"
Why'd you shoot me? Why'd you shoot me?
And it's got a hole in his head with steam coming out. So
Wow.
I was like, shoot it again, shoot it again. I shoot it a second time. It gets up and starts screaming again. I shot it 3 times before it finally laid down. And I never seen anything like this before. I'm thinking it's one shot, bang, it's dead. It's no problem. I had to shoot it 3 times, and I'm sweating, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing I ever did. So we're walking out of the woods, and a car stops as I walk out the woods, and like, excuse me, just want to let you know, a deer just got hit down the block.
Oh!
So I had to go through this whole episode again for the second deer. It was one of the crazy. I was emotionally drained after this incident. I was emotionally drained. I was like, this is. I come from the inner city to do this. I was like, it was just crazy. It's one of those things.
I one time on a car stop in Amityville, somebody's dog got loose because it was in the hood, and I'm on a car stop and I had to run up my hood, and I'm pointing my gun at the dog. Luckily, the owner came out, and I was like, "You better get your dog." I thank God I never had to shoot any dogs.
Yeah.
Did you shoot that second deer too?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I have a history with animals. I actually had to shoot 2 dogs too.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm glad that I haven't had to,
It's horrible. It's horrible.
You got any side hustles right now?
Yes.
I know we're comfortable, but we're always reaching for more. That's
Sure.
That's the nature, that's the nature of the spirit. You want to grow.
That's just the way it is. I mean, we have an investment property in the Bronx, and we're very, very lucky. We have very, very good tenants. Before that, we had a barber shop in New Jersey, which we sold. And right now, I'm in the process of developing. I just developed a charter company business, a boat charter company business, where I'll be doing boat tours, taking people out on the water, letting them swim in the water, cruise around, sunset cruises. So,
I'll support that.
Boating's a real passion of mine. I've always enjoyed it. This is my 4th boat now. I'm actually a certified captain and upgraded to a master's endorsement, which gives me unlimited amount of passengers and size of the boat. So
okay.
It's something that I really passionate about. I love being out on the water, and it just, my peace of mind is that's definitely one of my pieces of mind, just being out on the water and enjoying myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. If people want to find your charter company, how would they go about doing that?
But right now we're in the process of developing a website. It's called Champagne Charters LLC. It's going to be launching out of Patchogue, and I have an Instagram right now. It's called Champagne Boat Charters on Instagram.
Champagne Boat Charters. I'll put a link to it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like I said, it's going to be based out of Patchogue. We're right across from Fire Island, so we'll be cruising around Patchogue River, dropping an anchor, having some stand-up paddle boards or floating mats that people can sunbathe, and just something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna support that business. I'm gonna support that with my dollars.
I appreciate
it. This is my 5 final questions, and then I really respect and appreciate your time. Tulio Serrata, you are one of my heroes, one of my personal heroes. Your career, I shit you not, your career has really inspired me. I feel honored to know you, and I believe that you should give people the roses while they're still here. You know what I'm saying? And I really have love for you in my heart. But we're going to wrap up. You already told me what being a hero means to you, but just give me your quick, short definition again. What is it? How do you define a hero?
Being loyal, being honest, and being disciplined. I think are probably the 3 key things. And most importantly, I don't consider myself a hero. That's one thing. But humility is something that's very important.
When stress is at its highest and you feel like you're at your breaking point, how do you save yourself?
I'm very fortunate. I have a wife that's beautiful, loved, and I can go to her when I have those low points. So I'm very fortunate, but there are certain times where you just need time to yourself. You need space, and you need alone time. You
And
know,
you got the boat too.
yeah, yeah. You know what? Some people are scared of alone time, and I'm not necessarily scared of alone time. I think sometimes you just need to sit back and take a good look at yourself and see if you're the issue or you're the problem. And being
So
honest with yourself.
that's how you show love to yourself, by
Well, I show love to myself by, trying to exercise, doing the things that I enjoy doing. There are times where, I might have a nice cigar and I treat myself to a real nice cigar with a nice little drink. And I do enjoy that. I enjoy having a nice cigar. Like I won't light a cigar if I know I can't finish it from beginning to end without any interruptions.
okay.
I put on a little bit of Cuban jazz music and just slow it down a lot.
Nice. We should take a trip to Cuba once the world opens back up,
Been there twice. It's a great place.
I don't smoke, but I would definitely take that trip with you.
Yeah, it's nice. That's one of the things that my wife is she loves traveling, and I got more stamps in my passport since I've been together with my wife. So we do a lot of traveling, and traveling is unbelievable, experiencing the different cultures and different places and history and architecture. And it's just, you know, we the world is big, and the world is big, yet it's not big anymore because there's means of going to places that you've never gone to before.
Yeah, I love to travel. What's your power today? What's your strength or your best ability?
I guess just doing the right thing. I mean, you know, I look at my wife, and she has a very strong faith in Jesus and God, and the inner peace that she has is unbelievable. And I'm working on obtaining that. I don't have that just yet, but I've always felt, though, even though I don't have that faith or per se that she has, or as strong as she does, I've always balanced myself with just being honest, being hardworking, doing the right thing, and just treating people with respect. Because in our job, how many times people have a label. People are labeled on our job all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and then you interact with those individuals, and you allow yourself to be biased to that individual because of those labels. And I always try to make it a point that if someone has a label and I have to interact with that person, I'm going to definitely try my best to leave start off with a clean sheet of paper. Now, there are certain labels that you can't ignore, and you keep at the back of your mind. But you give that individual, if I have to interact with that person, I give that individual a blank sheet of paper and let them draw on that paper who they are and identify themselves by their actions.
For fun, last question. If you had a superpower, comic superpower, what would it be?
I guess Aquaman, because I like the water. So I guess it would be, I guess that would be Aquaman because I have an affinity for the water and being out there, just enjoying the water. So I guess it
All
would be
right.
Aquaman.
All right, brother. I appreciate your time. I
No,
appreciate you talking with me. And this was a fun interview. I'll talk
sure,
to you
brother.
soon.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
No
it.
problem. No problem. And I'll definitely put a link to the charter business.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, and everybody will trust me. Will have a good time being on the boat, some music, and some good entertainment.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Be well. Thank you.